Hello, this is Mary Collardetta, and I am, always looking at how to know God's will. How to know God's will for my life, the life of my family, the life of my church, the life of the kingdom of Christ, the life of people I know, people I don't know. What's God's will? How does God interact with us as a whole, as a people, and as individuals? Today we're looking at a wedding, the wedding in Cana. I'm going to read or John chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. And this is a full quote. On the third day there was a wedding in Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the wedding. When the wine ran short, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." Jesus said to her, "Woman, how does your concern affect me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servers, "Do whatever he tells you." Now there were 6 stone water jars there for ceremonial washings, each holding 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus told them, the servers, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then Jesus told the servers, "Draw some out now and take it to the head waiter." So they took the water, and when the head waiter tasted the water that had become wine without knowing where it had come from, although the servers who had drawn the water knew where it came from, the head waiter called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves good wine first." Sorry, let me repeat that. Everyone serves good wine first. And then, when people have drunk freely, then the inferior one. But you have kept the good wine until now. Jesus did this as the beginning of his signs in Cana in Galilee, and so revealed his glory, and his disciples began to believe in him. So there's a lot of things going on in this situation. First off, it's a wedding in Cana, and his family, Mary is there, his mother, and Jesus was invited with his disciples to this wedding. And at the wedding, it was customary to serve wine, and they had a head waiter, kind of like the host or someone who's in charge of everything, and they always serve the good wine first. And it sounds like people get a little tipsy, and then they serve the wine that's not so good, the inferior wine. So this is tradition in this culture. Kind of tradition in our culture. When people get married, they have a mistress or a host, and they have someone that's kind of takes charge of everything. In many weddings, receptions, there's drinks available. Wine in particular ages, and so there's good wine and not so good wine. Anyways, that's just the event. But they ran out of wine, and that was distressing to Jesus' mother. because obviously these were her friends. These are people she knew and cared about, and it would be disgraceful for them. And so Mary, the mother of Jesus, says, well, Jesus is here. We have a problem. He can do something about it. So, looking at Mary, was she wrong to go and ask Jesus to do something about the lack of wine? After all, they're going to get drunk. Why would you? Says they're going to, when they drink freely. Isn't that a little bit out of place? Why would Jesus want to do something about wine? She had no clue what he would do, but she knew he could do something. And that's God's will, that we go to him. We don't tell him what to do. We might tell him what our problem is. We tell him what our issue is, because that's what he does. He tells us to lean upon him, to bear our souls before him. Take his yoke upon us. So she is going to Jesus. And she, in this instance, tells us very clearly that God's will is that we go to him with our concerns. She didn't tell him what to do. That's another thing. That's God's will. We don't tell him how to handle a situation. But we know that whatever he does is the right thing. That's why she tells the servers, whatever he tells you to do, do it. Well, she had faith. She believed that he was the Messiah, God in the flesh. She hadn't seen a miracle yet. It says that this was the first miracle. At least that's what we know of, that's written. It's the first one that God wants us to read about and think about and pray about, which brings me to another point. When you read the scriptures, read along, and then pray and ask the Lord, well, what do you have to tell me about this thing? What's your will for Mary? What's your will for Jesus? What's your will for the people at the wedding? What's your will for the bride and the bridegroom? What's your will for the disciples? What was your will in all of this? Pray and ask him. See if we come up with some of the same things. So Mary tells the servers, do whatever he says. He might have told them to go, go to the neighbors. Who knows? But he saw the stone jars. There were 6 of them. These were jars set apart for water for ceremonial washings. And they were empty, apparently, because he tells them to go fill them. And they do. They said, okay. They go fill the jars with water. And they fill them to the brim. And then he says, well, take some, draw it out, go give it to the head waiter until we have more wine. And so they do. And when the head waiter gets it, he says, whoa, this is the best wine. He's flabbergasted. Their customs they were different from ours. At least they were from my family and the weddings that we would have. I think in that film series, The Chosen, it's really a good episode with the wedding at Cana. I think it gives a good reflection. I think God might have inspired a few things in that film. Anyways, he goes to the bridegroom and says, you know, everyone always serves the best wine first, but you served it last. And he praised the bridegroom for the wonderful wine. So let's think about this, because it has to do with God's provision. When he provides for us, he wants us to know that it is beyond what we think. It will be, he can and he does. Not always, but he can. Remember the loaves of bread and the fish, and then there was like a whole bunch left over. So the first thing we know is that we go to him with our need. And then we need to be willing to accept whatever he says and does. That is his will. And it's his will to take care of us. You know, Jesus he talked about, if you ask your father for a fish, does he give you I think as if he asks for bread, does he give you a stone? If he asks for fish, does he give you a serpent? I can't remember. Point being is that when you ask God for what you need, he gives it to you as what you need, and abundantly. They didn't need more wine. So it's a joyful thing to know that it is his will, the will of the Father in heaven, to give us what we need and even what we want in abundance. And now then we need to be careful, because we don't go to God for things. Or we do. Take that back. The peace that comes with his provision is that he does provide. We know that a lot of the people who were healed by Jesus and his ministry, they came to him, they asked him for healing. They asked him for deliverance. And probably a lot of those same people were in the crowd that shouted, "Crucify him." So that tells us it's not about the physical, getting what we want and need. So it is God's will, and it says here in the end that Jesus did this as the beginning of the signs, of his signs in Cana in Galilee. And he revealed his glory that had been with him from the beginning. He has dominion over all things. And his disciples began to believe in him, that he was more than a rabbi, that he was more than a holy man, that he was more than a prophet. So let's be like Mary. Let's go to Jesus and let's ask him for what we need for us and for whatever he lays on our heart. And then let's be amazed and look for his provision. Sometimes, we live in a different kind of world, and look for it. Look for his provision, because he will care for you as he cared for his mother, as he cared about the people at this wedding, as he cared about the bridegroom and the bride, as he cared about his disciples. So, thank you for watching. Pray and ask the Lord, look, what's the heavy thing on your heart that you feel like you really just need him to do something? And And then ask Him to help you see the provision, be it now or be it in the future. Oops. Sorry. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you like.